I have been very vocal about the Mason Mount move to Manchester United, and I think it's with good reason. And in my opinion, I've been pretty harsh. I have been pretty harsh about the Mason Mount situation, and to be honest, I continue to be because there's a few things that I can't really get out of my head in terms of when we signed him, why we signed him, how we signed him, and just the circumstances that have since taken place now that he's been involved at Manchester United. But we're starting to see signs of maybe a rejuvenation of Mason Mount that could shut people like me up. And I would love nothing more than that. But before we get into it, make sure that you drop a like on the video, subscribe if you are new, and if you want to be a part of the healthiest and greatest and best Manchester United community in the world, then make sure you do all of those things, because here is where we have good and non-toxic discussion about our favourite football club. And if you want to be involved, all you got to do is like, subscribe, and get involved in the comments, because I do read and respond to every single one. Mason Mount, I still to this day don't know why we signed him when we did and how we did. And to be honest, if I'm really honest with myself, that's still in my head every single time I think about him. Even when he has like good performances, I'm struggling to get out the fact that we signed him for £55 million from Chelsea. Like, they spent less on Garnacho with a few years on his deal and with no real like wage problems, no injury problems, and they bought him for less. And yet we bought Mason Mount when we just didn't really need him. Like, Eric Ten Hag's system at the time, it didn't really cater to someone like Mount when you've already got Bruno there. So it didn't really make sense why we had him. I don't know if it was a real decision on the manager, if it was a decision of the backroom staff, but it just seemed a bit odd. And to this day, 55 million plus, well, 55 million guaranteed as an initial fee with a potential £5 million based on trophy success is a bad deal in anyone's book. And not just that, but we signed him to a contract that runs until June 2028, where he's on a reported £250,000 a week. It does not make sense. And on top of all that, we gave him the number 7 shirt. And look, I know that the game has gone like in a different way, and it's not about individuals, it's about the team, but the number 7 at Manchester United, I've never seen a number have such a fall from grace. Like, it's sad. Because it's not like you can look at other teams and say, oh, well, 14 at Arsenal, you know, they went from Thierry Henry to Theo Walcott. Well, Walcott wasn't awful, for one. And also, it's just one player. You know, the number 7, you got George Best, Eric Cantona, David Beckham, Cristiano Ronaldo. And then it just fell off a cliff after that. And that upsets me. I'm not going to lie. I do think every single club needs a talisman. I do think you need things that remain important. Like, I don't think you have to retire a number, let's say, at Manchester United. You don't, but you have to let it hold some sort of reverence. And we've really lost that. And I don't think you can really claim that back, because you've got those 4 that I've just mentioned and a few others, which I'm sure you'll remind me of, that you know, is not really in my line of thought right now. But it's you got so many bad ones now. And it's not just Mason. I'm talking about Memphis Depay. I'm talking about Michael Owen. Like, I loved Antonio Valencia, but he didn't even want the number 7. We gave it to him. He had one of his worst seasons, and then we gave him the 25, which he wanted the whole time. And apparently, if we didn't give it to Michael Owen back then, the other person in line to take it was Michael Carrick. That was the wrong choice as well, and that's under Sir Alex. So we've gotten it wrong multiple times. Di Maria was probably the closest that we got to getting it right, but that didn't work out. You still got a world-class player wearing the number 7, fine. But Alexis Sanchez, when he's arriving overweight, it just didn't make sense. And now you've given it to Mason Mount, and I'm upset. I'm upset with it. I think like we should have let it hold more reverence at Manchester United, and Mason now having it potentially for the duration of his contract, or until he leaves potentially. Like, I don't see him leaving, really. I don't see anyone coming in for him unless drastically things turn around, in which case we'd want to keep him anyway. So let's just assume he's going to have it until 2028, maybe with an option to extend until 2029. That means the number 7 is with Mason Mount, a player who we weren't really that desperate for, and we weren't really that keen for at the time. And only recently, especially at Manchester United, have his issues with injuries really come home to roost. Because I look back at the stats, and this surprised me, to be honest. He spent about 100 days out injured in 3 full seasons at Chelsea. One of them was a COVID year, so obviously that plays into things. But he was out for 100 days, roughly. At Manchester United, in 2 full seasons, he's been out for just over 280 days. And it's a variety of injuries, but the one that keeps coming back is a hamstring injury, which really only plagued him when he was at Derby. So I'm there thinking an old injury has come home to roost now at Manchester United, where it is constantly, forgive my phrase, hamstringing him from being a successful player at United because he can't get a solid run of games. And it's not like a debilitating injury like an ACL, which I'm hoping Lisandro Martinez can come back from, but it's still bad. I mentioned Michael Owen. He couldn't get over his hamstring problems because he wasn't ever rehabilitated properly. And it shows a bit that at Derby, if you're out for about 2 months with a hamstring problem, and then you're out for the equivalent of what, like 4 or 5 at United with the hamstring problems, then maybe your rehabilitation hasn't been right either. So I don't know if you can all of a sudden just gain strength in there. You could be better, but what we have started to see a little bit is that Ruben Amorim, he fancies him quite a bit. He likes a bit of the Mason Mount. He does like Mason Mount. And you know what? If I was to just praise him for a second, I've gone on all the negatives. If I'm to praise him, the quality is clear. Like, Mason Mount is a very good football player. Like, I'm not going to debate that. He is. Like, he's got very good close control. He's very good at knitting play together. He's good at linking up with other teammates. He can play right across the front line. His versatility is there. And he has experience as well. People forget, like, he's one of the reasons why Chelsea won the Champions League under Tuchel. Like, he's got very good experience. So I'm not saying he's a bad player. Far from it. He's not a bad player. It was a bad investment because I just think we spent too much money on him. So we put the number 7 on him. So there was all this expectation from him, and he hasn't lived up to, in my opinion, about 15-20% of that expectation. In this system, you want a Mason Mount because you play with 2 10s, and even in a midfield, that's fine because I think Mason Mount can do a better job positionally than what a Bruno Fernandes can in a midfield too. I'm not saying that's the solution, but I think it's a bit more of a, it's less of a problem. So why not? And in the 10s, we're obviously looking at Mbeumo and Cunha. But like we saw Cunha when he was out injured, stick Mount in there, and vice versa if you're not getting the tune out of one of them. And Mason Mount to come on is a really good option, but you don't bring on your number 7. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm constantly on this thing of, like, there's so much expectation, and you don't bring on a player that you paid 60 million odd quid for. But we are playing a different system now, and Ruben Amorim does like him. That's very clear. And I think he has good reason to like him. He's a good footballer. He seems to be a decent lad, so I'm not going to say anything bad about him on that front. And he's starting to perform a little bit. I thought last season when we played against Athletic Club, second leg, he was outstanding, and he's starting to show that. Like the game against Sunderland, I thought he was very good. And the goal was brilliant. But that is only his 3rd goal in the Premier League for Manchester United. So I'm still struggling. I really am. I'm really struggling with him, but I want to be so badly wrong, because if, let's say, in an ideal world, over the next year, he doesn't get any debilitating injuries, a couple of niggles, keep him out for a game or 2, whatever, nothing debilitating, he can have a good World Cup, then we've got a proper number 7 on our hands, because he has the ability to do that. And I don't see Bruno Fernandes sticking around very long. And this is why I'm really making this video. I don't see Bruno Fernandes sticking around for more than a season now. So if he were to go, which I think he will, that opens up a big hole for someone to fill. And I think Mason Mount can fill that, and can fill it in a bit more of a giving way than what Bruno can. Like, Bruno will give the hard yards to any sort of football club he's in. He will run, he will track, he will do everything he tries to do. But I don't think he's positionally as disciplined as Mason Mount, or how he's shown throughout his career. So it'd be interesting to see how he takes up that role. Not to say that he's good enough to be the talisman for United, but he was good enough for Chelsea to win a Champions League, so he's good enough at a good level. And we do need to see a lot more of that. But can those injuries be put to one side for the benefit of Mason Mount, for the benefit of the football club? I don't know. Ruben loves a press, and Mason Mount is a very good presser of the ball, because I think he's quite smart in when he chooses to go, when he chooses to stay, and he's got energy for days, and really his body lets him down a lot of the time. But when you've got short bursts of pace, which is what pressing really is, especially in the middle of the park, you're not like a forward player, like right at the top, where you can just focus on one player and that's it. You are kind of having to go everywhere when you're in the middle, especially where he likes to occupy. So I do want to see, hopefully he just gets a good run of games, because if he does, I do think there's a quality football player in there. And I want to be fair. And I think I need to stop doing what I have been doing. And if you've been doing it, maybe you need to stop it as well, because it's not his fault we paid that amount of money for him, is it? It's not. And the thing that does make me kind of happy moving forward is that it's never a deal that INEOS would do. INEOS would not look at someone with 1 year left on his deal, pay 60 million quid, not look at his injury problems, and then just fork out a load of money and just go for it. They wouldn't. They're smart. They're smart in terms of their acquisitions. They're smart. It doesn't mean they get everyone right, but they're smarter. So I think we're in the stages of building out a better squad overall. Actually, I don't think the squad is terrible. I think the squad is better than what they're showing. The reasons for that we can debate another time, but I do think Mason Mount, if he can wipe the slate clean a little bit over last season with all the injuries and start this season as fresh as he has done and continue going with 1 game a week, then maybe I'll admit to being wrong. So far, he's still got to go a long way, but I'm liking what I'm seeing at the moment, and I hope it continues. So what do you think about Mason Mount? I mean, do you think he is the type of guy that will, take on board some of these things I specifically have said, or from that the manager's saying, or anything like that, and he will turn things around? Or do you think it's a bit of a dud? Let me know in the comments below. Subscribe if you are new, and I will see you on the next video.